I think what Israel really needs is resilient communities and vibrant Jewish life. The people who should have the tools to lead Israel for vibrant communities and resilient Jewish life are rabbis, men, women in the Orthodox community and beyond it, having the tools to build communities of listening, of chesed, of Torah, and of gemilut chasadim. My name is Rabbi Mishael, and I'm the co-founder of the YCT Beit Midrash for Rabbinic Leadership in Israel. For me, the story really starts with the neighborhood of Talpiot. This is where I was born and grew up. But I never thought I would return to this neighborhood. It always felt like the end of the world. Synagogues were always in the other neighborhoods. We had to walk for half an hour to get to where we could daven with people who were like-minded and thinking about Judaism in the way we did. But when we returned from our time in New York, and after I studied at Chovevei Torah, we quickly discovered that here, Talpiot is where we want to live, where we want to raise our daughters, and where we started a shul, the Klausner Minyan. After our first daughter was born, I realized that what I really wanted to do was figure out how to connect Torah and life and bring those two together. And that's really what rabbinic work is all about. But unfortunately, the Torah institutions here in Israel know how to teach Talmud and Halakha, but there's no place that trains people with the skills of how to be a community rabbi, what it means to be a rabbi, or even why someone would want to become a Rav b'Yisrael. And that's where I found myself traveling to America and visiting Yeshivat Chovevei Torah, which had just opened a few years before. And I remember meeting Rav Avi Weiss, the founder of Chovevei, and telling him of my dream to study how to be a community rabbi here in America and bring it back to Israel. And he said, "I'm sorry, we don't do that. We know how to train American rabbis." And I remember telling him, you know, Rav Avi, the translation is on me. You teach me the skills of being an American community rabbi, and I'll figure out how to translate that to Israel. I remember our first class with Dr. Mishael FRIEDMAN, and she said, you know, people often become rabbis because they're told that they know how to speak so well. But I'll tell you the truth, most people speak to rabbis because they want to feel heard. In my class, you're going to learn how to listen. That's when I knew Yeshivat Chovevei Torah was the place for me. I love my work at the Klausner Minyan, but one of the things I'm proudest of in the last few years is starting the YCT Beit Midrash for Rabbinic Leadership here in Israel. A few years ago, I met with Rav LINZER at a cafe here in Jerusalem, and he told me there was a group of rabbinically ordained Talmidei Chachamim who were curious about what it is that they teach at YCT, and could they also get some of the training to be a rabbi. And when I heard this, I have to say I was really excited, because this was my journey as well, having come from the world of the yeshivot in Israel to try and uncover what is it that we can learn from the North American Jewish community. And I immediately called my friend, Rabbi OFRAN, who's the rabbi of Kibbutz Yavne, and told him, would you join me in this project of helping young Israeli rabbis really develop their place as community rabbis? He immediately said yes. We're in the second cohort of the program now, and each year we've had 12 young rabbis. Some of them work in schools, some lead shuls, some teach at yeshivot, others work in not-for-profits, trying to figure out how do we build a thicker Jewish community life here in Israel. What we do on the program is we basically ask three basic questions. What is a rabbi? What is a community? What is Am Yisrael? By asking those three questions again and again, our participants slowly build up their own sense of what their rabbinic identity is, what their rabbinic mission is, and how they can work better to build community here in Medinat Yisrael. We meet every Thursday and we study together different issues of pastoral counseling, of Torah and modernity, of the challenges of a community life. Alongside our weekly sessions is a 10-day chaplaincy course, one of the first of its kind here in Israel, led by YCT's own Rabbi Mike Schultz. And finally, a trip to the United States, a 10-day trip, kind of a reverse birthright, visiting Riverdale and Yeshivat Chovevei Torah, studying in the Beit Midrash, davening with the HIR and with other synagogues in the community, and spending another Shabbat in a different community outside of New York to get to know different models of rabbinic leadership. In between, they met rabbis from different denominations, leaders in the Orthodox community and far beyond the Orthodox community, to try and learn and understand better what is the story of American Jewry and what can we, Israeli Jews, learn from American Jews. I use what I learned at Chovevei Torah every day in my rabbinic work, in my cultural work. I'm proud to be able to help train the next generation of rabbis and bring the tools that have been developed for so long in the American Jewish community here in Israel in order to really serve all of Klal Yisrael.